Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is At the Helm Sports. I'm your host, Derek Helm. Thank you for joining me for episode 121. Please be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave those 5-star reviews. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Down in the comments section, let me know, are you enjoying this golf season? Because it seems like there are a lot of people complaining online. Now, maybe that's just the DFS and gambling bubble, but I'm interested to know. I mean, not a lot of people are commenting on the videos compared to how many are watching. But if you are watching this, just down in the comments, tell me, are you enjoying the golf season so far, or has it just been an absolute disaster? Because it kind of seems like people are on either one of those two sides. So just a little bit curious. So this week we will be diving into the Texas Children's Houston Open. A little bit of a mouthful there, but first we're going to dive into the Valspar. Honestly, I kind of enjoyed it. I liked seeing a difficult test. You know, the course played difficult. People were complaining that we've seen too many easy tournaments, and even ones that should be difficult weren't playing as difficult. So I did like the course. I liked how it played. I liked the tournament overall. Now, obviously, the leaderboard left a little bit to be desired. That'll happen when Sam Burns and Justin Thomas are absolutely terrible at the tournament. But Sunday was interesting. You know, obviously didn't really work out very well if you were one of the Keith Mitchell or Cam Young backers. I'll get to what they did to me, but Xander, you know, he basically Xandered. He wasn't really doing much and then stormed up on Sunday and ended up with a great finish. Actually, I was fine with it because it helped me in a GPP, and actually he ended up cashing his top 10 bet. So I was fine with it, but it's just funny how he can't play like that if he's in contention. But when it doesn't matter at all, the guy can absolutely go nuts. And it was nice to see. And actually, we'll get to it now. Because of that, was actually way up there in a GPP. I really didn't think I had any shot. I had 2 6-6 lineups, and this one was, I think I was well outside of the top 100. All of a sudden at like 10 a.m., I looked and I was in 36th place, and he was only a couple holes into his round. And I was like, okay, we got a chance here. So obviously he stormed back. It got me all the way up to 10th place, and Keith Mitchell was about to tee off, and we all know how that went. So went from 10th place and then ended up, I think, in 51st. So thanks, Keith Mitchell. Appreciate it. And I know a lot of people bet him as well. So he's been having trouble here on the weekends, you know, been playing good golf, but just can't seem to get it done. There's just something on the weekend that gets in his way every time. So it's going to be interesting to see what people do with him this week. And then, of course, Cam Young, you know, a lot of people backed him, and it didn't really work out too well. Pretty much worked out the same that it has. Another second place finish. It was a rough finish for him. I actually did make a outright bet on him prior to Keith Mitchell teeing off, because I was just looking at the leaders and I was like, none of these guys really scare me, but I could see Cam Young making a run. So as a little hedge, basically just put a little bit on Cam Young just to kind of break even for the week. And obviously that didn't work out well. So I got the double whammy. I got to see Keith Mitchell absolutely destroy my DFS hopes, and Cam Young destroy any chance of me getting my money back. Overall, from a betting standpoint, it was an okay week, but really need to get back on the horse here and get some winners, and hopefully we can do that this week. Now, this field is pretty weak, but we can move on to, as I said at the top, though, before we move on, just it seems like people are very, very upset with this current state of the PGA, and I get it, and especially from a DFS and betting standpoint. I mean, I'm not having a good time, as I just said. You know, it's every time you get up there, it's just someone out of nowhere just comes in and rips it away from you. This week it was Malnati, and it sucks from a DFS and betting standpoint. But if you were just a casual fan, I don't think it really matters as much, because honestly, I've lost plenty of DFS contests. I've lost plenty of bets. So it pissed me off for a little bit, but then I just got over it. And honestly, the tournament was enjoyable. And you got to be happy for Malnati. You know, the speech he gave after, it's awesome to see a guy like that win. And there have been good stories this year. So I do think from a golf standpoint, it's not a complete disaster. Are there things that can improve? Absolutely. Has the PGA handled basically everything since Live became a thing in an absolutely terrible manner? Sure, they have. But I don't think that we're in as dire straits as a lot of people are making it out to be. Now, granted, just the internet age that we live in and just people making content, you either have to be on one side or the other. So I get that. But I don't think it's as terrible as people are making it out to be. And then obviously, we're still not even out of March yet. So we have the majors right around the corner. The Masters is coming. So it could change everything right there. So I'm not too worried about it. But if we move to this week, Texas Children's Houston Open, going to be an interesting one. The field is kind of weak. Obviously, we have Scottie lurking over everybody. There's a couple guys I really like at the top. So we'll get into the field. But it is played at Memorial Park Golf Course in Houston. And Tom Doak renovated it in 2019, had the help of Brooks Koepka. Definitely looks like a course that Koepka would like to play, kind of major-esque, if you will. Very long, difficult. So it's going to be interesting to see what these guys do here. Now, Doak was a protege intern of Pete Dye, so it's going to be interesting to see, this course could maybe play well for some of the guys that play on Pete Dye designs. It's been played here from 2020 to 2022, so only 3 years so far. Not a large sample size, but it's probably good for some guys that have seen the course to have that under their belts. But I wouldn't say it's the end all be all with how small of a sample size. Now, Memorial Park is a 7,435 yard par 70. So 7,435 yards, pretty long course. And then when you make it a par 70, makes it long. Now it's listed as Bermuda greens. Obviously, we have the overseed. Heard a lot of people going back and forth this week. Now, obviously, the overseed came more into play in the Florida swing. I've heard some people that are from Texas and from the Houston area saying that some of the Bermuda is starting to come through. So it won't be as much of just the overseed as we've seen the past couple weeks, but ultimately I really wouldn't be too concerned about it. The other thing to keep in mind is this tournament was played in November the first 3 years. So obviously playing at the end of March, it's going to play a little bit different. It's going to be interesting to see kind of how that comes into play. Generally, the course is not exactly too soft in November. It can play a little bit fast and firm, but you would think in the mornings with it being cold and damp, it probably plays a little soft in the mornings. And with the cold, maybe the ball doesn't travel as far. So it's going to be interesting to see how different the course plays in March. Now, I did look up, Houston has had 10 and a half inches of rain already this year, which is actually the most they've had in 120 years. But again, people on site are basically saying that it really hasn't rained that much. Houston is a very, very large area, and they're saying a lot of the rain has been more towards the southern end, down towards the Gulf. So the course itself may not have been affected that much. Now, in the Doak redesign also, they put a ton of irrigation in so they can keep the course pretty dry. So it might play pretty firm and fast here. They got a little bit of rain this week, but it's looking like the weather is going to be really, really good. Obviously, it's Texas, so we're going to get some winds, so that can dry the course out as well. But it's going to be interesting to see how different it plays from November to March. Now, the course itself, we have 3 par 5s, 5 par 3s, 10 par 4s. 2 of the par 5s are reachable, but number 8, 630 yards, not really reachable in 2 by most. But it does still boast a 30% birdie rate, so still a scoreable hole, but probably not really a great chance at eagle there. Obviously, with 5 par 3s, you're going to want to take a look at guys scoring on those par 3s. And then the par 4s, half of them are very long, basically close to 500 yards, a little over 500 yards, and they're going to play very difficult. So it's a very long course, definitely has played difficult in the past. With how long the course is, fairways aren't necessarily easily hit here, but even less so when guys are just mashing it off the tee. So the strategy is power over accuracy here. And as a result, the average drive comes in over tour average, 292 yards. The fairways are tree lined, but there is a little bit of room between the edge of the fairway and the trees are a little bit scattered about. So unless golfers are missing really wildly, it shouldn't come into play too much. The rough should be penal, but as I said, with the change in season, going to be interesting to see how penal it is. And then also with the PGA, the way they've been setting everything up, they've been setting it up a little bit on the easier side. So maybe it's not too bad, too long. But approach shots are definitely going to be very long here. You have 26% coming from 200 plus, another 21% from 150 to 175. I'd say that 150 to 175 and 175 to 200 is probably the more scoring range. 200, you're going to want guys that can hit that because they're going to have a number of those approach shots. But I wouldn't be looking for guys to get their birdies on those holes, probably more so when they're inside that 175-yard mark. That's when they're going to want to stick it close, and that's where they'll be able to get the bulk of their scoring done. Now, obviously, with longer iron shots, greens are definitely going to be missed, even more so because these greens are elevated, shaved down, have a lot of runoffs. So guys that can hit their approaches, if they're hitting it close, they might be able to stick these greens. It's going to be interesting to see if it does play firm and fast, because then guys are going to miss the greens quite a bit. If it plays a little bit softer, maybe they can stick a little more, but you're definitely going to want some guys that can play around the green here, because it's not just you're running off into a bunker or you're running off into a deep rough where it's just going to stop a little bit off. You're going to run off and you're going to have some tight lies, and you're going to have some wizardry around the greens here to scramble. So definitely want to keep that in mind. As I said before, we're in Texas. You definitely want to keep an eye on the wind. As of right now, it looks like Thursday is the best day. Not going to be too terrible, but as the week goes on, we got somewhere around 20-mile-an-hour winds, maybe a little bit higher gusts. So definitely want to keep an eye on that. It can cause carnage in Texas, but overall, it doesn't look like there's any wave advantage right now. Basically just going to be all right on Thursday and then pick up a little bit throughout Friday and Saturday, Sunday. So nothing crazy, but just something to keep in mind there. And if it does pick up, that's even more so guys that are going to have to play around the green and probably missing greens. So definitely keep that in mind. There's 144 golfers in the field, top 65 in ties, make the cut. Now, only 7 golfers have actually shot double digit under par in the 3 years we've played here. So it is a very difficult course. Now, with the change in season and how the PGA has been setting things up this year, maybe we see a little bit easier scoring, but the cut has been +1, +2, and +4 the 3 years it's been here. Finau won it at -16, but he was far and away the best golfer that week. So no one else was even close to him there. Kokrak at -10, Ortiz -13. I'd say we're probably somewhere around there. Maybe -13-ish would be my guess. So if we dive into the field, obviously the conversation is going to start with Scottie, and for good reason. I mean, the guy is on a run, obviously won back-to-back tournaments. So I'm kind of going to think this out here live on the podcast because I haven't decided what I want to do with Scottie yet. And obviously, with the run he's on, with how well he's playing, with the fact that it looks like the putters come around a little bit, and putting on overseed, he's won 2 events straight. He's won twice at Waste Management, which also has some overseed. So if the Bermuda's popping through a little bit more, maybe the greens don't play as true as what he's seen recently. So maybe that could be an issue. But for now, let's just say, you're playing on a surface where he's going to be able to continue to putt the way he has been. That's scary, especially when you take into account that this course is absolutely built for him. He's already played well here. He has a second place finish his last time out. So loves Texas. It's Easter. It's just everything is saying Scottie Scheffler. So, I mean, I could see him running away with this thing, especially with how weak the field is. But at the same time, I mean, if he's going to be 40% owned, 13,000 is obviously affordable with the 5K pricing, and you could probably even fit another guy in there with him, but you're gonna have to get those other guys right. And we saw it at the Players where yeah, he won, but you didn't necessarily need him. So maybe you can get away with it this week, and I'm going to try and make a case for that. If he does what he does and maybe the putter is not fire and he doesn't run away with this by 3 to 5 strokes, then if he comes 7th place, these other guys, I love Wyndham here. I think it's a great course for him. His length off the tee, he's great with the short game. So 10,900 for him. I mean, that's a huge discrepancy. If he can finish well, maybe you don't need Scottie. And then Sahith, you can make a case for him as well. I mean, even if he finishes behind Scottie, let's say Scottie comes top 5, or let's just say Scottie wins. Okay. So Scottie wins and Sahith is top 5. there's actually a possibility that Heath scores as much as him or possibly even outscores him. Because with Scottie, he's not going to get in trouble. He's going to pick the course apart, pick his areas to try and score, and really not to make too many bogeys. Whereas Sahith, we know he can be aggressive and he can go on runs. So maybe he makes a bunch of bogeys, but he can make way more birdies throughout the course of a tournament than Scottie can. So while his final score might not be minus 15, or maybe he doesn't win it, Draftkings scoring, that doesn't matter. As long as he outscores him, I definitely think that's in the realm of possibilities. And then you have Zalatoris also, who's been playing great here recently, and it looks like a course that's set up for him, plays long, difficult course as well. So there's a lot of guys up here that I really want to play. And if I'm playing Scottie, I'm not going to be able to play a lot of them. So that's kind of the conundrum I have right now. And obviously, Scottie could run away with this thing. But at 40%, if he's owned 40%, it definitely, you got to at least think about fading him. Because I think if you can make a case for these guys from a game theory standpoint, if these guys end up doing better than Scottie, you have passed 40% of the field. That's literally cutting whatever GPP you're in almost in half. So it's definitely got to be considered. I probably won't make a final decision until tomorrow on Wednesday. So definitely take a look at the newsletter. I'll have my final thoughts in there. But that's where I'm at right now with Scottie. As I said, I love Wyndham. I want to play him. If I'm playing Scottie, obviously I can't go there, but I do think that this course fits him rather well. He's played this course all right so far, but like I said, small sample size, not going to go crazy there. But I love Sahith. I've already made an outright on him at 22-1. 10,300, I think, is a good price for him. So since getting his first career win in September at the Fortinet, he's looked like a totally different golfer. I mean, finished top 10 in 4 of his 8 tournaments so far this year. So gotta like that. 9th most recently at the Players. Large part of the success is he's cleaned up off the tee a lot. He was spraying it all over the place last year, but he's gained strokes off the tee in 13 of his last 14 tournaments. He's 7th in the field in strokes gained off the tee so far in 2024. So gotta like that. And then obviously the putter's been on fire. He's been gaining strokes in 10 of his last 11 appearances with the flat stick. So I like him quite a bit. Now, I'm going to play Zalatoris as well. I've actually decided not to make any first round leader bets and actually threw in an extra outright because my card was kind of done. But I just, the more I look at Zalatoris, I think this is a great course for him. He's been playing incredible this well. I do think that this suits his skill set. Now, if he starts missing some greens, maybe that's a bit of an issue, but he's very good with the long irons. So I think if he's hitting these greens and he's a good lag putter, I do like him here. Another guy that I'm considering is Finau. Obviously, he won here. Hasn't really been playing great this year. He's been striking the irons incredibly well. So similar to Zalatoris, if he can hit these greens, then maybe he can do some damage here. But if I'm playing Scheffler, there's no chance I'm playing Finau. But right now, he's probably somewhere around 10 to 12% owned. So if he's one of the lower owned guys up here, I think you can make a case for him. But it is hard because I do also like Siwoo quite a bit. I've also made an outright on him at 33-1 with top 6 each way. He's made the cut in all 8 appearances in 2024, so not as volatile as we're used to with him. Played great at the Players, finishing 6th place. Had an incredible closing round there. Shot 64, which matched Scottie for the low round of the day. He looks good statistically, too. Over the last 24 rounds, 7th in strokes gained off the tee, 14th in strokes gained approach, 10th in bogey avoidance, and he's gained strokes on approach in 7 of his last 8 tournaments. So love where he's at statistically. He's played well here before. He missed the cut in 2021, but 35th in 2022. Actually played better than that 35th place finish would imply. He ended up making bogey on 3 of his final 5 holes. So really was playing much better than that. And then all of a sudden just gave it all back basically over the final stretch. Then if we go down a little bit further, I'm fine with Jason Day, another guy that's played well here. I bet him at 28-1, so I do like him. He's played well here before. It looks like a course that will fit him. Alex Noren's going to be pretty popular, but I think for good reason. Great with the bogey avoidance, been playing well here, has played well here in the past. So I want to keep an eye on his ownership. If he gets too out of hand, I'm probably not going there. But Keith Mitchell as of right now, I think I'm going to be fading him. I think he's going to be pretty popular despite the collapse last week, but he gained a ton of strokes on approach last week, but they're slightly skewed due to that hole out on Saturday. He's been terrible around the greens, terrible with his putter. So if he's hitting greens, that's all great. But as we said, if this place is gonna, if you're gonna miss greens, it's not really, he doesn't have the around the green game to make up for it, and especially the putting. So I think if last week gets into his head and he gets off to a rough start, he could absolutely implode here. So if he's going to be somewhere around 15 to 17% owned, I'm fine skipping right over Keith Mitchell. Tom Hoagie, you can make a case for, just absolutely incredible with the irons. With even with how good Scottie is, he's Hoagie's still first in strokes gained approach. So you definitely can make a case for him. But as I said with Keith Mitchell, without the around the green game, and he's been putting a little bit better, but not much. I think I'm going to skip over him there. Considering Aaron Rye at 8,600, just a guy that plays difficult course as well. Obviously, he was chalk last week and didn't come through at all. So maybe you get a little bit of flop leg and he comes in a little bit lower owned. So do like that. Also, I love Billy Horschel here. Probably going to be looking at a placement bet on him, but at 8,300, I do think that that's a great price for him with how well he's been playing. Think this is a course that fits him as well. And then down here, I'm going to try and jam as many guys at the top. You know, it's been basically the theme recently is get the guys right at the top and hone in on certain guys throughout the rest of the board and really just scattershot the top. And I'm not going to play a lot of guys down here. I just don't like a lot. I do think Jake Knapp makes some sense here. You know, obviously, him spraying it off the tee isn't as much of a concern here. And he's great with strokes gained approach. He's good on par three scoring, pretty good with the bogey avoidance. So I think it could be a good course for him. Want to keep an eye on his ownership as well. Taylor Moore has just been so consistent, really not missing any cuts. So I think he's a safe play at 7,600. Want to keep an eye on his ownership as well. Hasn't played well here recently. So it's kind of a, course history versus recent history, but he's been playing so well. I'm fine going there at 7,600. Then I'm going to play one of Bhatia or List. I don't think I want both of them in the player pool. Bhatia has been incredible lately, and obviously the putter has looked really good in spots. So if he can bring the putter, I think he definitely plays well. List, on the other hand, not really looking too good lately, but I do think this is a course that could fit his skill set. So not going to play both of them, leaning Bhatia right now, but we'll see. Maybe by tomorrow I do end up playing both of them, but as of right now, I think it's going to be one or the other. Then as we get down here further, there's not a lot of guys I like at all. I will go Joel Damon, 7,100. I do think that it is a good price for him. Obviously, he played well last week and played well at the Players also. He's the ball very well, very good on approach. So I like where his game is at. Mark Hubbard also 7,000. I think this could be a place where he can maybe do some damage. Not going to play a lot of him, but do need some of these guys down here in this lower price range. So I'm fine going to him. With the current games of Sam Ryder and Novak at the same price, 6,900. I definitely think you can make a case for both of them. Now, obviously, Ryder had a great weekend this past week. Novak has looked really good. So I like the both of them. Want to keep an eye on Novak's ownership. I've heard him talked up quite a bit this week, but he looks good, very good on approach, but he also has the around the green game to complement it. So I do like that quite a bit. And then I'm going to go back to Matt Wallace. He was in that DraftKings lineup I was talking about with Keith Mitchell. Wasn't able to really do much on Sunday to help propel that one, but he didn't really hurt it either. So at 6,700, I think makes sense for him. He plays difficult courses pretty well, plays longer courses all right. And if the wind picks up, I think that doesn't hurt him too much either. And then Ryan Moore has been playing incredible golf, 6,500, fourth in strokes gained approach over the last 24 rounds. Had a couple nice finishes. If he could really just make a couple putts on Sunday, he actually could have possibly won that tournament last week. So I like Ryan Moore. Sam Stevens on a driver heavy course has the distance. So I do like him down here at 6,400. And then just a couple other guys really I'm looking at is Bud Cauley, 6,200, Texas guy. Been playing well since he's returned. Obviously, he's fading a little bit on the weekends, but I mean, that could just be being out of golf for so long. So maybe that comes back to him. But he's been playing well overall, especially in the earlier rounds. So I do like him at 6,200. Chris Gotterup is probably a better golfer than a lot of the guys down here. So 6,100 I think is okay for him. And obviously he has the distance that I think you want here. And then if I head down into the 5Ks, I really don't think there's a lot here. Maybe Henrik Norlander, just with his bogey avoidance ability, and he's okay on the par threes, pretty good on approach. So I think he would probably be the only guy I'd really consider down here. If excuse me, if I'm not playing Scottie though, I obviously it doesn't even really matter that much. I don't need to go in the 5Ks as much, so I do like that actually. But if we recap the betting card, so far I have Zalatoris at 20-1. I have Sahith Theegala at 22-1. Jason Day, 28. Siwoo Kim, 33 with a top six each way. And then I threw something on Joel Damon at 100-1 and also have the top six each way on him. Placement bets, I've made top 20 on Zalatoris at minus 105, Theegala at even money, and probably going to do a placement on Billy Horschel. We'll see if anything else catches my eye. Probably going to bet a couple matchups as well. But you can check out thehelmsports.com for my final card. Also, it will be in the newsletter, so check that out. The hardcore parkour is already up. My course preview is up over at thehelmsports.com, so check that out. But that's going to do it for this week. Going to be an interesting one. Definitely got to figure out what I want to do with Scottie, but I definitely think you can make a case for fading him this week. Now, maybe that comes back to bite me, but I've lost plenty of money on DraftKings, so it doesn't really worry me that much because if it pays off huge. So I do think it's actually worth taking a risk this week. But that's going to do it for this week. As always, thank you for listening. I am your host, Derek Helm. And remember,
just have fun out there.